It's the Brad and John Show.
Brad and John Show. Today's date is August 15th. This is the C Block. The reason I mention that is because we have a lot of people listen live over air on KSLQ, Westplex Talk 104.5, but we also have a ton of people that listen to the show in the future. They listen to the podcast on bjshow.co or the podcast, the video podcast, in bjshow.us, or you can just, because of the fact that John found out that I made one single solitary mistake since we started the show, almost 2 years ago. I forgot to put the link on through Red Circle for the Apple iPod thing, whatever the hell you call it, and you can now listen to us on just all sorts of different devices. They say your devices. Okay, John. Yesterday, hold on a minute. I got to clear my throat. I sent you a screenshot, and do you have hold on just a minute. Do you have that screenshot that I texted you yesterday by any chance handy? Hold on a minute. I'm making a mistake
we both have frogs in our throat. You could call us Miss Piggy. She spent a lot of time with a frog down her throat. You have a comment here on the Springfield News Leader page. Would you like me to read it quickly, Brad?
I would, and I want your opinion on this. Go ahead and read it. And let me give the background on this. This was a story that was written in the Springfield News Leader about the coming budget problems at their public radio station. What's the call letters? You know out of here.
KSMU.
And the organization down there in Springfield runs both the NPR affiliate on radio and the PBS TV affiliate. It's one organization that runs both of them. And there was an article talking about the fact that there are going to be some changes because of budget cuts and stuff like that. And I put on there what I thought was a very well-reasoned comment. Would you read it, John?
Please, I certainly will. Brad says, broadcasting in all forms has become challenging for station operators. As a commercial broadcaster, we face the challenges of reductions in ad revenue because of competition from Facebook, Meta, Alphabet, X, etc. Ask the owner of the News Leader how their revenues have been impacted by digital. The pubcasters have been somewhat immune from this because of government funding and listener donations. But the government funding is ending, and the listener base of the pubcasters keeps getting older with not too many new listeners for NPR stations. Bottom line, welcome to the real world. It's challenging for the non-com and commercial broadcasters as well. Adapt or die. And Brad, one of the best comments comes from a gentleman named John Thornton. Can I read that?
Yes, go ahead.
He responds to Brad, and Mr. Thornton says, dumbest comment yet.
Yes.
The, all caps, majority of Americans want their tax dollars spent on this. Now, Brad, are we allowed to say the C-U Charlie Kenneth word?
Well, it's like the F word with the C instead in the front. Yes.
Yeah. But we could say. I think so. I think that's like cuckoo, right?
Yeah. He called me a cuck.
Yeah. He said it isn't about being profit driven, little cuck.
Yes.
Now, the most offensive thing about this is that he doesn't separate little cuck from the rest of the sentence. There's no comma there. So it just reads, it isn't about being profit-driven little cuck. But he's clearly calling you a cuck.
Yes.
Now, Brad, I would assume, based on the diverse series of behaviors from your 4 children, that they're actually all your children. So you're literally not a cuck. But I guess this gentleman just knows that cuck is an offensive term, so he calls you a cuck.
Do you know what the dictionary definition of it was? And what you didn't see was I actually sent this back to him. And the dictionary definition of a cuck is, you ready for this, John?
Yeah, it comes from cuckoo, right?
I don't know if it does or not.
It comes from the cuckoo bird, who is uncertain of its paternity. But go ahead, Brad.
No, it comes from cuckold. That's what it does. Okay.
Yeah, but cuckold comes from the cuckoo bird.
Right. Okay. A weak or servile man, often used as a contemptuous term for a man with moderate or progressive political views. So I put when I responded to this guy, I copied and pasted that in there, and I said, look in the mirror, because.
Yeah, I mean, that's a little name-cally, Brad, but I mean, it's true. I mean, I love the fact that people on Facebook have in the last month called you a communist and also called you a cop.
Yes. Now, John, look, if you think that my comment was bad, just tell me. But I thought I was being very well reasoned.
And I don't see anything, and not just because I agree with your opinion, Brad, but also I don't think there's anything even debatable in what you said. You said that ask anyone, whether you're public or private, what ad revenue has been like over 20, 10, 5 years.
Exactly.
And the public broadcasters have been insulated because of government funding and because listener donations. But look at the News Leader. News Leader is owned by Gannett.
Right.
Look at what Gannett has gone through over the last 20 years.
Right. And all of us, and here's the interesting thing. Yesterday, when we had Todd Showalter on, I asked him specifically, and he even said, well, that's a good question, because once upon a time, the political cartoonists, there were a bunch of them because all the newspapers bought their strips, right? They bought.
Absolutely, right? You had Tom Oliphant, you had Darko, you had all these guys.
And because of the fact that most of the newspapers are like lotting out, and a lot of them, they don't even print anymore, and you just saw the venerable the Washington Missourian be sold to the Hoffman family. Okay. And the other thing was, and then yesterday, because I'm this weirdo that I have all sorts of interest in things and cameras and stuff like that and motion picture, there was a fascinating article that a friend of mine sent to me about the company Arri. I think that's how you pronounce ARRI. You familiar with this company?
No, I'm not. What do they do?
It's a German company, and they produce incredible motion picture cameras. They are one of the go-to companies that if you go on a Hollywood, at least back in the day, if you went on a Hollywood, a screenshot or something like that, or a movie that's being produced in the field, chances are they're using Arri cameras, ARRI. It's a German company, okay? And the interesting part of this is it was, and it's still, I think it's privately held. There were two founders of the company, and one family bought out the other ones, and very huge, monstrous company. They're essentially putting themselves up for sale. And the interesting thing was that the rumor is that Canon is going to buy them. And the interesting part of the article was the reason why they are not doing so well is because they put their nose up in the air and they go, we're not going to produce any low-end cameras. We're going to produce all the high-end stuff. We're going to produce the stuff that Hollywood uses. And you know what the problem with that tactic has been, John?
What is it?
The problem is, and this is the interesting thing, I saw this article and then there were people commenting on it, and everybody who commented basically was saying the same thing. Here's what's happened, that people don't go to the movie theaters anymore. They don't go to the NBC, CBS, ABC channels. They go to YouTube, where people are using their $1,000 4K iPhones and their $1,000 4K Android phones. And what's interesting is on the comments on this article, there were quite a few, you could tell quite a few people in the motion picture industry disdainful of the fact, well, now you got these people who don't know an f-stop from an aperture.
Yeah, they're a bunch of amateurs.
Right. And the problem with it is, once again, this is cultural change, technological change, to the point where I've talked about this all the time in our industry. If you wanted to produce, when I first got in the radio business, if you wanted to produce a broadcast quality commercial, even if it was just a voiceover, just a straight voice, you just couldn't go down to Radio Shack, or nowadays you couldn't, back in the day, you couldn't go to Guitar Center. You had to have, first off, you had to have a console, and the consoles were very expensive, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. You have to have an expensive reel-to-reel machine, an Ampex or a Scully, which were, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000. You had to have like an expensive microphone, like a Neumann microphone, like a $3,000 or $4,000 microphone. Now you got your phone, and it has a pretty decent microphone in it, and you can get into an acoustically neutral environment like your car, which I tell people all the time. Go in your car, record audio, and it'll sound almost studio quality. Okay, the same thing has happened in video and in production. And the Arri company has had, these Germans are, everybody's going to need our cameras. And the interesting thing was, even from the motion picture end of it, they've had competition from upstarts by companies like Red. Have you ever heard of this company before?
No, I haven't.
Red, which produces an excellent, studio grade, motion picture grade camera, and another company called Black Magic. And Black Magic, which has really taken the market by storm, Black Magic produces incredible 4 an 8, and even sometimes even beyond that. There's people doing stuff like in 12K and 16K and stuff like that. You can buy Black Magic cameras for like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, and an Arri camera, just a camera alone. And this is what's interesting when you get into the real high-end cinematography grade cameras. You buy the camera, and then you got to buy the viewfinder, then you got to buy this, then you got to buy that, and by the time you're done, you spent $500,000 on a stupid camera. And the point of this is, it's like the same thing in audio. There's a point when you reach diminishing returns. That yes, NPR can use a Neumann, a $3,000 or $4,000 microphone, because of the fact that it has frequency response out to 30K. The only problem is that in broadcasting, we have to cut off the audio at 15K. So all that nuanced upper, high frequency that's above 15K that they're using with the Neumann, you don't hear because it can't be transmitted by the radio stations. So why don't they go buy a Shure SM7B or an RE20 or even an SM58 for $100? No, they have to have a $4,000 Neumann. This is my beef with public radio. Listen to any of the programs. I've railed about this before. You listen to any program, they spend 2 minutes. Our associate producer is blah, 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 blah. Our cinematographer, blah, 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 blah. It's like I always give you grief about, what's the guy, Brian Munoz, the guy who works for St. Louis Public Radio. He's a photographer. Okay, think about that for a minute. A photographer for a radio station. Let me think about that for a minute. Why doesn't that make any sense, John? Tell me why that doesn't make any
Brad,
sense.
They do have a presence on the internet, and I think most importantly, we can now add the word photographer to our list of words that you and I pronounce in the St. Louis way, because you call him a photographer, and I think most people would call him a photographer.
How do I say it again?
Photographer.
Photographer? Did I say photographer?
Yeah, you say photographer. He's a photographer.
John, I don't think I said it that way.
I think we could play the tape back. I think you do, Brad.
John, I've got a coin in my pocket. I've got a quarter in my pocket. Let's flip it and see who's right or wrong.
Let's see if it's actually a quarter or if it's a quarter.
And by the way, I'm going to drink my milk here I have sitting right here in front of me.
You should definitely drink some milk and then go up on the roof.
Right, go up the roof.
Now, what I would suggest, Brad, I'm sure you've entertained ideas of this before, but now that you have a course under your belt, the fastfoodmediet.com, have you considered putting a course together for folks who are looking just at making a good audio? I hate to say podcast because I think that that's jump the shark, but let's say folks wanted to create a podcast. Have you thought of putting an audio course together for folks?
John, I can't believe you brought that up. Were you like, do you have ESP? Were you looking into my brain or something like that?
I do, and I also have ESPN.
Okay, just yesterday, and it's funny, I have talked to 2 different guys, one of his name, and quite honestly, after looking what these guys did, I'm thinking to myself, I'm not going to put together a course. These guys are too good. One guy's named Lenny B. And matter of fact, you don't know about this, but I have a website I'm working on where it will include not only my courses, and quite honestly, my Fast Food Me Diet course is my 3rd course I've done so far. Actually, it's the one I've done myself. I've hired 2 other people to do other courses. So I will be rolling out a website where I will be promoting courses that I have produced myself, courses that I personally have done, and courses which I find interesting. And just yesterday, I sent an email to a guy who has a fascinating course, and his name is Dylan Haveron, and his course is called One Day. Let me see if I can find this. Let me find it right here. One Day Audio. Okay, if you want to look at your phone real quick, this guy's done it, and this guy is really, and it's one as in the number one, and I will One Day Audio. I promote this guy. This guy is an audio pro, and he teaches, matter of fact, the course is Learn Professional Sounding Audio Techniques in 1 day. And he's got a course. I think it's like $49 or $59. And what's interesting about it is the Lenny B guy has a deal where you send him a track from your studio and he analyzes it and he sends it back to you EQ'd properly. Because this is one of the things that drives me nuts. The other day I was listening to, I was listening to the Patriot, and they had some guy. And the big thing now is when you interview people, you don't interview them on their phone. You interview them with in the day it used to be Skype.
One of those clip microphones, right? What do they call? What's that brand called, Brad?
No. They should be using those, the DJI microphones, but it was to the point where I'm driving along, I couldn't understand what the guy was saying. The room was so live. He was in, and it sounded like he was literally in his toilet. He sounded like the Tidy Bowl man. Remember the Tidy Bowl man?
I do remember the Tidy Bowl man, yeah.
What did the Tidy Bowl man sound like? Hey, sounded like he was in a cave, right?
And he was being flushed down.
Right, he's being flushed down the toilet. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, and I've even heard this on NPR, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, somebody needs to, these people, and a lot of these people are people who are on talk shows all day long. They're like experts. Someone needs to call them up and say, you know what, for $500, I'll come over to your place. I will make your audio sound good. I won't make you sound like you're talking in a toilet and people can't understand a damn word you're saying. And that's what this guy's doing. This guy, this Lenny B, and this guy one day, and it's pretty interesting. He says, one day audio is for anyone who wants to be able to record great sounding audio for their content creation without wasting months trying to figure it out on your own. Right now, you can get it lifetime access for $58. And I'm going to buy the course. And what I did was I sent him an email yesterday, and he responded early this morning. I said, do you have an affiliate link? Because what I'm trying to do is, through this website I'm put together, which I still have not publicized yet because it's not done, because if I did put it out there, John will say, well, you got Latin on there. There's Iproblixta.
Yeah, and let's face it, you'll never have it in a finished state, but you'll have it, Brad. One of the things that you're very good about doing, I mean this sincerely, is you're good at getting a minimal viable product out there. So it won't be perfect. It won't sometimes even be very good, but you'll have something functional out there.
John, that is my life. Why would I want
I know, and that's a compliment, Brad. I mean that, because let's make this about me for a minute. I have the paralysis of wanting everything to be perfect, and I don't want to present something to an audience unless it's really good. And sometimes that keeps me from putting stuff out before it's in a finished state.
Okay, hold on. I can't find the Scott Fawn thing where he talks about But see, this is an interesting point, John. You have, and I will tell you this, unfortunately, I'm not unfortunately, but this was my father. You have the engineer mentality. Do you know what I'm talking about, the engineer mentality?
That's the first time I've heard that, Brad. But you say, and you've told the story before, and correct me if I'm wrong here, the idea is that they're engineers that want to have something perfect. Meanwhile, marketing and managing comes up to them and says, you can do version 7.0 later, but right now we need to get this product out.
Well, and a perfect example of this is that some people complain that companies do this on purpose. They launch a product and they know it has some defects, but they're not sure where the defects are. They put it out in the marketplace, and then they find out what the defects are. And what's interesting about it is, me being a car guy, you mentioned certain model cars, and I can tell you the problems with it. I'm like, for example, right now, cars that I own, I can tell you the problems that everybody has the same problems with this. And part of it has to do with the fact that if you buy one of the first generation cars, like when they come out with a new model, you never want to do that. You never want to buy the first model of a car or anything like that. You want to buy the second one, because once it comes out, they realize that they made a mistake here. They need to adjust this. They need to make this part a little bit stouter. They need to, have this clearance a little bit more over here, a little bit less over there. And that's because of the fact that if it were the engineer's choice, they would never release the product until it was absolutely positively perfect. And the problem with that is that even John, I could go through, and even your stuff, I could send to I've got a person that I know who is got a PhD in English, and I could send your stuff to her, and she would mark it up like she would have to buy.
Absolutely. She absolutely would, Brad. You're right about that.
She would have to buy a couple dozen red pens to do your stuff or anybody's stuff, and the interesting thing about it is when I go back and forth with this particular person, I say to her, people don't talk like that. I write like I talk. When I write things, I write like I talk. And to me, and when someone says to me, I read something you wrote, and it sounded like you were talking that. That to me is a compliment. Because,
yeah, I get exactly what you're saying, Brad.
Because if you're a good communicator, you don't use highfalutin, words and things like that. But I'm not saying you use the F-bomb every 3 seconds like Hunter Biden does. You know what I mean? You don't go that route. But
that just makes you more authentic. Hey, speaking of our show, Brad, I can acknowledge that we won't be here on Monday, and it's all because of John.
You know what? And you know what? I'm going to tell you something, John. I haven't told you about this. I think I may do an A segment with a guest host on Monday.
Oh, I think that's fantastic. Is it somebody from a conservative group?
Yes.
I think that would be a perfect day to do it, Brad.
Do you think that was okay? Would you approve of that?
Are you kidding me? Of course. And for folks who don't know, I think most folks in the St. Louis area know that Monday is back to school day. So just like last year on the first day of school, I will be attending to things that are, frankly, Brad, I love you, but my kid's first day of school is much more important than doing the show between 7 and 8 a.m. So I will be at various bus stops throughout the area.
Actually, John is not telling the truth. He's actually been hired by the Francis House School Board to do a search on their new superintendent.
I will. And you know what? I'm just going to throw a dartboard at a list of folks because it's not going to matter. They're not going to start anyway. We're going to find out that some guy is a closeted homosexual or he stole money somewhere and he's never going to have to work again.
Right. And he'll take his $230,000 and then go to work at a school district in Oklahoma. Right. Simple as that.
So folks can listen on Monday. Are you going to go ahead and go through with that, Brown, on Monday?
I haven't firmed it up yet, but I will later today.
That sounds great. So folks can tune in and you're going to hear, well, we won't give any spoilers, but it'll be an interesting presentation.
Well, they don't even know about it yet because I haven't talked to them about it yet, but hopefully that'll come together. Okay. You know what I'm talking about too, right?
I know exactly what you're talking about, Brad.
Okay. Have a good weekend, John. I will be very upset on Saturday and Sunday because I won't be doing the show, but I can tune in my own radio station and hear you at Saturday at 10 o'clock and Sunday morning at 8 o'clock. How's that?
That's right. Thank you, Brad.